Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening. As folks join, please put your name and where you're from in the chat. Before we get started, I want to let you know that we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the conversation, so if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. All right, let's get started. My name is Katie Roback. I'm the program coordinator for the Campaigns and Partnerships team at EDF Action, based in Washington, D.C. And I'm so excited to be moderating the webinar on sports and sustainability, a topic that is close to my heart. I've been working at EDF Action for 5 years, but I've always been interested in climate change and the environment. I'm originally from Southeast Michigan, so I've been very passionate about protecting our natural resources. I first became interested in how climate change was impacting sports during the 2022 Men's World Cup, with many of the games being played later at night due to the intense heat. From there, I worked on a public education campaign focusing on the sustainability efforts of the 2023 Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. Through my research, I found the incredible organization EcoAthletes, who bring together climate-conscious athletes from around the world. Tonight, we will hear from 3 EcoAthletes sharing their experiences with this year's climate-supporting Collegiate Cup, why they care about climate change, and how they see its impacts on their campuses and their sports. For some more background on EcoAthletes, I'll turn it over to the founder and CEO of EcoAthletes, Lou Blaustein.
Thanks, Katie, and thank you for having EcoAthletes be part of this this webinar about sports and the impacts athletes in particular can have on driving climate action. And that's what EcoAthletes is all about. Our focus is athletes. Our mission is to inspire and coach athletes to lead climate action. We are a 5-year-old nonprofit with that as our mission. And we work to make good on that mission by providing our growing roster of EcoAthletes champions. These are athletes, right now we have 197 pros, Olympians, and our fastest growing cadre, and those will be represented here very well when you start talking with our champions, is NCAA student athletes. About a quarter to a third of our champions now are NCAA student athletes. And all of our champions from all over the world, our job is to provide them with the tools to advance from climate curious to climate leader. And why athletes? Well, simple. They are the most influential humans on the planet. And that's not just me talking, that's actual data from several different studies going back years and years, which show athletes are more influential than music stars, actors, actresses, even politicians. And they have led on all manner of social issues going back for decades, from civil rights to women's rights to issues of war and peace and on and on. But on climate and environment, they've stayed on the sidelines, mainly because of fear of not knowing the topic, of it being too political. And the one thing we get more than any that is unique to climate and environment is that athletes hold back because they are afraid of getting hammered on social media for being hypocrites because they fly all over the place for their sport. So we provide our champions with the tools to move beyond that fear, to overcome those obstacles. And those tools include mentorship, climate communications for athletes, coaching, public speaking opportunities and thought leadership, and getting out there and showing leadership in programs. And one of those programs, and the one we're going to talk about tonight with our champions, or you're going to talk about tonight with our champions, is the 3rd annual EcoAthletes Collegiate Cup, powered by Protect Where We Play, which just concluded on Earth Day. And the Collegiate Cup is a competition amongst this year 29 schools where we have at least one EcoAthletes champion on campus, 28 from the US and 1 from Canada, where the champions recruit their teammates, their friends, their family members to join their team on an app called Climate Games. Yes, there's an app that gamifies climate action. You sign up for the app, and then your exercise, your workouts, running, walking, swimming, cycling, etc., are added to your school's total. And those workouts are then converted into an environmental currency, which uh, uh, funds the planting of coral restoration. So every step you take, to quote the Sting song, um, leads to coral restoration. And so this year, we had our title partner, our title sponsor is a new initiative called Protect Where We Play from the Ocean Conservancy. And Protect Where We Play is a 5-year program minimum, started in February, in which the Ocean Conservancy engages athletes and entertainers to rally their supporters and their fans to protect the ocean. And so you can see why the Collegiate Cup would be an attractive partnership for Ocean Conservancy and Protect Where We Play. And so our call to action for tonight is for all of our viewers of this webinar to go to protectwhereweplay.com and sign up to join Team Ocean. And by doing so, then you will be invited to take part in all sorts of actions, both potentially in person and remote, and to make a difference for ocean health. And we think that that this is just like the Collegiate Cup, where your exercise leads to planting coral. Joining Team Ocean will allow you to make a positive difference on the ocean. So I know that's a lot, but I wanted to give you the background on EcoAthletes, the Collegiate Cup, and Protect Where We Play. And now back to you, Katie.
Thanks so much, Lou. And I will now introduce our 3 athletes. First up, Jillian Ryan is sophomore from Cornell University studying environment and sustainability with a concentration in sustainable business and environmental economics. She is a member of the women's equestrian team, originally from a small family farm on Long Island, New York. Her passion for sports and sustainability led her to become an EcoAthlete champion and a member of the leadership team of Cornell Student Athletes for Sustainability. CSAS was the driving force behind Cornell taking the lead on day 2 of a 6-week competition, and they never looked back on getting the win. Next up, Jenna Scholes is a recent graduate of NC State with an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering and a master's degree in engineering management. The EcoAthlete champion ran on the cross-country and track team all 5 years of college and helped the Wolfpack win 3 NCAA titles in that time. She led the combined NC State and Long Beach State entry to a strong 2nd place finish in the Collegiate Cup. Her passion for environment and sustainability started when she was in high school, recognizing how important and difficult it is to advocate and implement climate change regulations. She recently accepted a job in a graduate development program at Roden Schwartz, while she'll be training to become a sales engineer. And finally, Juliette Blaise-Savoie is a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto in the Department of Laboratory Medicine and Pathobiology. Her research focuses on the ecology and evolution of influenza viruses. She just completed her 6th year on the University of Toronto Varsity Blues women ice hockey team, which she won a bronze medal in this year's national tournament. Juliette has been a proud member of EcoAthletes champion for 2 years, and she led the U of T team to a 4th place finish and was the only Canadian university in the Collegiate Cup. So I welcome you all to the screen. All right, let's get started with you, Jillian. As the winning team, congrats on that, by the way. What sparked your interest in combating climate change?
So as you mentioned, I grew up on a small family farm in Long Island, and that made me interested in climate since I was really young. I didn't know I was interested in climate, but I knew that I cared about my horses and their connection to the land and the trees and things of that nature. As I was growing up, my farm almost turned into like a personal model of what was going on with climate change globally. So to explain that a little bit, I noticed that the water quality in the local bay was getting really bad and fish were dying. And everyone was cutting down trees to put more houses. And it was getting really hot and we didn't have snow days anymore. So I didn't know at the time that that meant something until I got to high school. I was required to take an environmental science course, and I was like, "Oh, wait, there's a connection here." So I kind of learned that you can study sustainability, and that all of the changes I've noticed were actually something. Um, so that sparked me to want to study sustainability and to be involved in combating climate change. So then when I came to Cornell and now majoring in environment and sustainability, I've learned that we can do things to make climate change better and that there are power structures and political structures that are kind of inhibiting this change that we need. And that kind of made me be like, okay, I want to help change things around and find a solution. And that led me to EcoAthletes, and here we are. So yeah, that's my little how I got involved in climate change.
Thanks, Jillian. Turning it over to you, Jenna. Why is climate change important to you, and how did you get involved in EcoAthletes?
Hi, so yeah, I started learning about climate change when I was pretty young. My mom is a science teacher, so I kind of grew up just like always being a STEM person. And I really was like in high school, like you said before, is when I really started realizing how much of a problem this is, and something that, kind of triggered me to be um, more involved and advocate for climate change is just I kind of realized, you can't. Yes, there's a lot of problems in the world, but you can't really solve those if our planet is destroyed. So I honestly think like the number one problem that we should be trying to solve right now is to stop this climate change. And I realized too, like a lot of people don't care enough. They think that, it's not going to affect me, so it's fine. But at the end of the day, it's like I care about the people that come after me. And then to get involved with EcoAthletes at NC State, I just got in contact with Lou through a couple other people. And the intersection of sports and sustainability was something that I had never even thought of before. And then, after talking with Lou our first time, it was really something that I was like, wow, this is bring all my interests together. So it's been amazing to kind of learn about how I can become a better advocate as an athlete.
Love that. Thank you. And Juliet, how have you seen the impact of climate change in your lifetime, and why is combating climate change important to you?
Yeah, so I'm from San Jose, California. And so growing up, I saw the impacts of climate change like in my daily life, growing up with droughts, wildfires, like air quality issues. And so I think like for me, like the impacts of climate change are very real and very present. And it also ties into the sport I play because growing up in a warm, sunny climate and playing ice hockey in a rink that requires a lot more refrigeration than the one we have here in Toronto, like you can see the greater impact that playing your sport has. And so for me, like joining EcoAthletes and being able to kind of use my sport in a way that would benefit the climate was a really great opportunity.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I think it's really incredible how you all come from very different places. You all come from very different sports and backgrounds, but climate change is really the overall like tying thread between us. So I would love to learn more about your experiences for this year's Collegiate Cup. How were you all able to get your teammates, classmates, friends, professors, fans to join you during this year's Collegiate Cup? And how did you use your sport to build your advocacy?
I can start.
Sorry, Jenna.
I can start. So I'm a part of SAC, which is the Student Athlete Advisory Committee at NC State, and so that's where I went first with this. I had them. They send out like a newsletter each week to all the athletes. So the first thing I did was contact our president, and I made a flyer with Lou and a couple other people that were on the NC State team, and had them send that out to all the athletes. And then I made like a social media post, put it out to all my friends, really encouraging them to sign up. Being a runner, I thought we could, a lot of my teammates could have a big impact on, you know, the placing, and we ultimately got second. So sometimes it's kind of hard to get people to actually do it. So a lot of it was just following up and, reminding people like, hey, have you signed up? Have you signed up? Making it very clear the steps. And then also through our sustainability office at NC State, I contacted them and had them put it in their newsletter too to get people to sign up.
Okay. Jillian, I think you were next.
Yeah. So I could add on to what Jenna said about being kind of persistent about like, oh, have you signed up? Because a lot of people do love the idea of what you're doing, and then oh, I forgot, and things like that. So just being kind of like, oh, make sure you sign up and giving really clear instructions was definitely a big thing. But so as for participation at Cornell, I worked very closely with Emily Pape. She's a junior on our women's basketball team, and she's actually like the team leader of Cornell. She just couldn't be here tonight. But so she and we worked a lot on getting people to sign up and to be engaged in this. So like Jenna said, we had our flyers and we had social media and all of those things. And then we wanted to get very personal with trying to get people to sign up. And we found that word of mouth was honestly a very good tool. People just literally talking to people, here's what we're doing. And then through that, they can get our excitement and our enthusiasm about it. And also be like, oh, this is really awesome. Maybe I should care. On top of that, though, we sent out emails to all of the sports teams and all the club sports and all the sustainability clubs to get kind of the broadest array of people we could get. And then we have Cornell Student Athletes for Sustainability, CSAS. It's a new club that Emily, our team captain, she started that. So CSAS is one of our big leverage points that all of our members would be like, now you go get your team and you go get your team. And that helped us bring a lot of people in. And then my last thing that we did was we wanted to make this giant banner. It was like 5 feet this way and like 8 feet this way. And we hung it up in our athletic facility. And the way it worked was that we had these Velcro tabs. So it was a leaderboard, this banner. And we would move the Velcro tabs every so often to keep this live leaderboard going on in person. And the hopes of that was that everyone who walked into Bartels, as our building, they would see if we weren't first, we'd be like, come on guys, Cornell needs to get to first. So that first day when we were second, we had made this time-lapse video. And when I hung up, I think it was NC State was first, actually. I put NC State up and I was like, ooh, and then we kind of were like, come on, everyone, you signed up, now we gotta do it. So yeah, definitely just getting like the energy and the passion out there and the logistical emails and all of that, but just keeping people in it and sharing our enthusiasm so that they also felt that enthusiasm was a really big thing for us.
I love that. It's a combination of like current modern advocacy as well as old school advocacy. It reminds me of when I was younger and when we'd have to like fill up the like thermometers to win a pizza party for our class when I was like in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Juliet, what about you? What was your experience with the Collegiate Cup?
Yeah, so my experience was quite similar to Jenna and Jillian. I reached out to a lot of groups on campus, including our varsity student athlete, like student-led group. U of T is also like a really big sustainability school, so we have a lot of student groups that are sustainability focused, and I reached out to a lot of those groups as well to collaborate on this project. And two that I worked with a lot were Green Leading and U of T Environmental Resource Network. And so working with all these different groups and really just like getting the social media blitz and continuously sort of posting updates and leaderboards throughout the challenge to encourage people to keep going. Another thing that I did is I kind of leveraged the fact that U of T is the only Canadian institution that was in the challenge this year. So I reached out to other Canadian EcoAthletes that weren't necessarily affiliated with U of T, but the challenge is pretty open wide. And so you can join a team regardless of affiliation. And some of our other non-U of T EcoAthletes were folks that had the biggest impact on our team. So yeah, shout out to them.
That's incredible. What was your guys' experience like? Obviously, as athletes, you're quite competitive. So I'm sure that aspect of getting your fellow athletes to join was important. But did you maybe have any meetings or questions or like field any questions from other athletes about like why you were doing this experience?
Yeah, so I think, this was definitely something different that's been put out to athletes in the past. And I wouldn't say I had many questions about it, but a lot of people would like come up to me, or they saw my posts, or if I asked them to join, they're like, wow, this is actually like a really cool idea. I didn't even know this was a thing. So I think for a lot of people it was something pretty new. And they, once they found out, they're like, oh, this is like a really great thing to do. It's super easy. Once you sign up, you really don't have to do anything because you can just, connect your watch to it. And I think people like that a lot.
Yeah, I can go next. Pretty similar to me. I think most people, it was very different from a lot of the initiatives that folks were familiar at my school. But once it was kind of explained to them, people thought it was a really cool and unique thing. And so, yeah, there's a lot of excitement on my end too when people learned about it and learned how to get involved.
For me, when the biggest time that we got questions was when Emily and I were hanging up our banner. You can assume we were struggling quite a bit. We were like on ladders and it was falling all over the place. And there were a bunch of people that were just walking by and they'd just be like, what are you doing? And that was a really great, almost like starting point for us to get people engaged in what this banner was for. Because, everyone gets so many emails and all of those things. So having something a little unique really drew people in to be like, oh, what's going on here? And we actually had a lot of people stop being like, oh, what are you guys doing? What's this about? And that was great because we could be like, oh, you're on the baseball team. You should go tell your entire team to sign up. And it kind of grew like that. So the questions were an opportunity to kind of expand and get people to really understand what we were doing rather than just be like, oh, you should sign up for this thing. Because having them actually understand the impact that they're making was so much more beneficial, we felt.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Thank you. And I think that almost everyone joining this webinar today can agree that climate change is one of the most important challenges in our lifetime. I think Jenna mentioned it at the beginning that this is like the #1 issue. So looking towards the future, how would you guys like to see the larger sporting world take part in defending the climate? And I'm going to turn it back to you, Jillian, real quick. As a member of the Cornell's equestrian team, how would you like to see that happen in the future? And like, what impacts have you seen climate change affect you and your horse specifically?
Yeah, so climate change definitely has an impact on my sport, and horses appear to be very noble, large creatures, but they're actually kind of just like small babies. They're very sensitive. So the whole fluctuating extreme weather thing isn't great by any means, just for the horse's health and things of that nature. And then something I've seen personally with my sport is like we need to feed our horses, we need hay. And when our people that we buy hay from, when there's a drought or really, floods or something, then we suddenly don't really have access to hay. And that's definitely a scary predicament to get into because your horses need to eat. One other way that it affects horses is that if you're in a climate that's suddenly getting a lot wetter, your horse's feet they kind of get soft, being kind of how like your fingertips get when you're in a pool for a while. That happens to the horse's feet, and that can make them kind of sore and sensitive. So that is also a way that climate change is kind of, challenging my sport. And a way that I'd like to see it change is I think that equestrian overall has many ways that we could become more sustainable, whether small scale or large scale. There tends to be some waste with shavings and hay and things of that nature. So kind of getting the equestrian world to think about sustainability a bit more in taking care of their horses could definitely be something really cool. And Lou actually pointed me to this this business that works on sustainable footing, which is like the dirt that's in the ring where you ride, because some footing is oil-based, or there's, a whole bunch of different types of footing that you can get. So getting exposed to those initiatives that were happening is really awesome, because I had no idea that anyone was working on sustainability in the equestrian world. But yeah, I think there's definitely progress to be made, and the progress will be beneficial to our sport too, to protect our horses.
Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know that the dirt, sorry, that was underneath the horse was called something specific. That's fascinating. Jenna, you're a middle and long distance runner, and the London Marathon was just a few weeks ago with some record level heat. How would you like to see like the running world be better in the future about climate change?
Yeah, so I definitely think there's a lot of room for improvement on this. Like you said, the London Marathon with the record heat, like no professional runner, no any beginner runner wants to run in heat that bad, and it's clearly due to climate change. It's not just coincidence that happened. I mean, you look at the wildfires a couple of years ago. That's a big thing that I remember affecting my sport is, when the air quality is that low, we're not allowed to go outside and run. It's not good for your health. It's not good for anyone. And, I think in the running community is so big, but there's also just so much, single-use plastics between cups and bibs. And we don't need a lot to run, you just need a pair of shoes, but I think there's a lot of room for reusables and getting rid of those unnecessary single-use plastics, especially in those big marathons when they're just, handing out cups and all that. And I know there's a lot of big brands like Adidas that does a lot of recycling of their clothing. So I think if more big brands like that kind of adapted and adopted those regulations and those manufacturing processes and were more adamant and about it, then I think other smaller brands would follow, and those organizations that run these races and stuff. I think that would, obviously it's not going to solve climate change, but if one person starts doing it, other people are going to catch on. And it's only going to get worse. I don't want to be running outside risking, damage to my lungs. And no one likes running on a treadmill. Well, I don't know if people do, but yeah, that's. Yep.
Thank you. I have a question for you really quick.
Yes.
Were any of your meets delayed due to wildfires or extreme heats?
None of mine personally, but I know out in like the West where it was really bad, there was definitely have been stuff that's been canceled before.
Mm-hmm.
And like just following runners in Colorado, it was really bad, and there's a lot of runners that go there to train. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of them, they weren't allowed to go outside to do that. They had to stay inside and somehow get their workout in, even if they're running. A lot of times, like, you got to go do hills, you got to go be on a track, and when you can't do that, it hurts your training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Juliet, you mentioned before that you played indoor hockey where you grew up in San Jose. So how have you seen the impacts of climate change in either like playing outdoors on the pond in Canada, or playing more indoors in all the rinks? And how would you like the world of hockey to be better in sustainability in the future?
Yeah, no, I think although I'm from California, my parents are from Quebec, and so there's this really, long-standing tradition here in Canada of like pond hockey and playing really in the outdoors. And it's something that I've been lucky enough to be able to go back to Quebec and do with family. And it is something of an accessibility issue too, right? Because a lot of people, like my dad, grew up playing on the pond or like in an outdoor rink, which is free and you can just go out and skate. And so like having increasing temperatures and not having the same accessibility of like outdoor venues to learn the sport in certain regions is really detrimental. And as far as like how hockey can do better, like unlike, running, hockey's a really intensive sport. There's a lot of equipment, there's a lot of massive venues, and you need water and refrigeration to build the ice. And so there's a lot of sources of environmental impact, but that also means there's a lot of opportunities to be better and to cut down on our impact. So like my rink at the University of Toronto, for instance, got an electric Zamboni a couple years back. And I know
Really cool.
the Seattle Kraken in the NHL like have a ton of really, really creative and fantastic environmental initiatives. Like I think at one point they were talking about using like rainwater in their Zambonis to build the ice. Like just these really unique and incredible initiatives that when you're intentional about putting environmentalism in the forefront of the way you do things, like those solutions can come up. So I think there's a ton of opportunity in hockey to be more sustainable. And some places are doing a really great job with that. And I hope that they continue to lead the way and that other teams follow suit.
Great. An electric Zamboni, that is very cool. So I would like to ask you guys just a question for all three of you. Why is it important for young people and athletes to use their voices and platforms to speak out about climate change?
I can start us off on this one if you guys go with that. So kind of, I think Jenna said it before, like climate change isn't going away. It's kind of just getting worse at this point. And if we recognize all of the effects that climate change has on people or ecosystems, literally anything, very rarely are they good effects. And I think, Jenna, you were saying this before also, that there's so many issues that we can see in the world. And a lot of it, in my opinion, boils down or could be improved if the climate is also improved. So I think that, like we've kind of all said here tonight, we have a really big challenge going on right now in solving climate change. So, I mean, young people, it's kind of up to us. We're the next ones to make decisions in the world. So if we can all kind of be, keep the climate in our minds and make decisions that do consider the climate, then we could make a very big impact. And then as for athletes, we either have a big social media platform, or we have fans, or we have our team also. My team, this is the first people that I went to with the Collegiate Cup. I was like, guys, please sign up. This is what I'm doing. So even with all of the connections that we have in our industry, in our sport, in our team, we can kind of, branch out to everybody and start to spread these ideas and really get it, more popular. But yeah, overall, I think just we have this big challenge, and we can't just avoid it or keep going about our business, because things are just going to get worse. More people are going to be put in harm. Ecosystems, I really care about like animals and things, they're also being harmed. So yeah, I just think it's time to rise to the challenge. It's now or never. It's time to make big decisions and to put ourselves out there and really make a change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was great. Just going off that too, I think for young people, we're impressionable right now. It's kind of hard to preach to old folk. They're kind of stuck in their ways. They're not really going to change their opinions anytime soon. So I think really appealing to our generation about, this is something we have to think about, and this is something that, like Jillian said, it's not going away anytime soon. And again, as athletes, we have that platform that a lot of people don't have. And, what I learned from Lou, and he said it earlier, is people listen to athletes. People look up to us. If you're putting something out there, then people are going to listen, especially for me. I'm not one, I don't post on my social media that much, kind of just things that are important to me. And so like even posting about the Collegiate Cup, I know people are going to see that and they're like, oh, I have this bigger following than a lot of people, and they don't see me posting random things every day, so that it's gonna draw people's attention. And I think a lot of us are consumed by our sports. A lot of athletes are, and just being involved in something outside of that, I think, is really appealing to people as well. And it's something I have found that I look for in other athletes. I'm like, oh, you're involved in this outside of your sport. I think that's a really cool thing. And just bridging the gap between your sport and what you care about, I think, can be really impactful.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything that Jillian and Jenna just said. And I think, like climate change is a massive, massive issue, and we need all hands on deck, and we need every resource we can get. And I think the unique opportunity with being an athlete, whether it's like in high school or like us in college, walking around with your student athlete backpack, like you have eyes on you. And it's different than like some celebrity or some professional athlete getting on social media and talking at you, because you're like, you have eyes on you, but you're a leader within your community, and it's people that you're connected to. And so like having that advocacy come from somebody who you're looking to on your campus and who you interact with is just so much more personal, and it really allows for that sort of grassroots level impact, which has been a driving force for combating climate change for a long time. And so, I think that it's a really great opportunity for athletes to use that influence that we have positively.
Yeah. And I think moving forward, grassroots is how we're going to make an impact in the future. I'm going to ask Lou to come back on the screen and see if he has any final comments as well before I give our final comment.
Well, thanks for bringing me back in, Katie, and really great job, all of you. Katie from the interview as the interviewer, excellent questions. And I'm sitting there and kind of in the green room listening to Jillian, Jenna, and Juliet, the J team. And I am just beaming because I'm like, yes. They're saying the things that I'm thinking, and I think a lot of people are thinking, and they're saying it so concisely, so powerfully, and they are showing why they can be the advocates through the power of sports to make a difference on climate. Not going to solve it, and all of these provisos that you guys have mentioned, but I was just so stoked to hear you guys, because the ball gets moved forward even a little bit. That's important because we're in a tough fight. We've got headwinds, and I'm glad you all are on the J team.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thanks, Lou. Thank you to all the athletes and Lou, the J team, for joining us tonight. You've shared your inspiring stories and illustrated how sports and sustainability intersect in today's world, and why it is so important to use our voices. To quote Margaret Mead, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." I will now turn it over to my colleague, Alex Ross, of EDF Action, who will be discussing the EPA Polluter Pass. Alex?
Hi, folks. Here, let me get my camera situated here. As Katie mentioned, my name is Alex Ross. I work at EDF Action as our grassroots engagement project manager. And tonight we're talking about an action regarding the EPA and some recent decisions they've made around polluters, and essentially giving them a free pass to pump more toxic chemicals and carcinogens into our air. And so when the EPA announced this sort of waiver request, we immediately at EDF submitted a Freedom of Information Act request, which would allow us to see sort of who is applying for these passes, right, and who's getting them. And just last week, we actually went to court with the EPA over the records, and were able to move forward there. And so we recently released a map that actually shows all the different facilities that could potentially qualify for this exemption, including ones that we know. Some of them we know, but the EPA hasn't been super transparent about all of it. So I'm dropping the map in the chat for folks to take a look at. But there's over 500 facilities, petrochemical and just harmful chemical facilities that are applying for this exemption. And so these harmful chemicals would increase risks in communities to things like cancer, heart and lung disease, adolescent brain development. And at the end of the day, the EPA was created to protect Americans from these harmful toxics in our air and water. And it's up to us now to really demand that they do their job and not allow polluters a free pass. And so tonight we're asking folks to submit comments directly to their representatives and to EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, asking them to not give polluters this pass and really enforce the regulations that are on the books and enforce the law. And so I will drop that link now in the chat as well. Lots of links for folks. And we'll take a few minutes now to do that action. We'll ask you for your name and address, a couple other things, and then you can customize the message if you'd like. I think, the other thing, after you submit the action, take a look at the map, see kind of what's near you, see if there's facilities that you are already aware of, or maybe there's facilities that you didn't know were, in your town, in your state, that are looking to get this sort of free pass from the EPA. And really, again, I just wanted to say thank you to Lou and to EcoAthletes and to the J team for all their great comments this evening. It was really great to see so many young people taking action for our climate. And I think, it's just the beginning of a long journey, and EDF Action is here for all of your grassroots needs and energy. And we're so excited to be working with you all. And so thank you again. And everyone, just bring you back on the screen really quickly. But thank you all so much, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.